Picture this. A machine lifts off from the edge of a massive green farm field. It hovers, scans the landscape below, and then just gets to work, spraying with this near-perfect, absolute precision. No heavy tractors tearing up the dirt, no workers hiking row by row with heavy backpacks, just a flying robot getting the job done in minutes. It's a pretty wild image, right? And it really sets the stage for a massive shift happening right now in global agriculture. In this explainer, we're going to look past the cool visuals and figure out what's actually going on. If you follow ag tech at all, you've definitely seen the viral videos. Drone spraying is everywhere right now. Wet rice fields in Asia, sprawling vineyards in Europe, massive grain operations in North America. But we've got to ask the tough question. Are these flying machines actually making farming better and more economical? Or are they just, well, an overhyped, extremely expensive gadget catching a ride on the hype cycle? I mean, some of these professional rigs literally cost as much as a luxury car. So the reality here is way more complicated, and honestly, way more fascinating than just a simple yes or no.
All right, Section 1, the ground problem. Why agriculture needs to look to the sky. To really get why agricultural drones are causing such a stir, we have to rewind a bit and look at the historical context of farming, the familiar everyday patterns of crop spraying, because we really can't appreciate the aerial solution until we fully understand the ground problem.
For decades, crop spraying followed a pretty standard playbook. You had these massive boom sprayers rolling across fields, dumping pesticides, fertilizers, or herbicides over huge areas. Or on smaller farms, it was just intensive, back-breaking manual labor with backpack sprayers. Now, don't get me wrong, those systems absolutely helped scale up agriculture to feed a growing population. But they brought some serious physical bottlenecks. Heavy machinery literally compacts the soil. Tractors physically crush and damage a portion of the crops just by driving through the rows. Then you've got workers facing harsh chemical exposure. And crucially, if a field is muddy or flooded like a rice paddy or sitting on a steep hillside, ground spraying becomes brutally slow or honestly just completely impossible. So think about the stark contrast between traditional machinery and what a drone can do. With traditional machinery, you're relying on brute force, a heavy, broad-stroke approach that essentially forces its way through the environment. But a drone? It's light, it's entirely targeted, and most importantly, it makes absolutely zero contact with the field. By totally detaching the equipment from the dirt, drones just inherently solve all those issues with soil compaction and physical crop damage. It's a complete game changer in how we physically interact with a crop yield.
Which brings us to Section 2, precision from above, and the aerial advantage. Now, let's stop thinking about these as simple hobby gadgets. We need to look at what modern professional ag drones can actually pull off when they're loaded up with advanced GPS, terrain mapping, and super smart flow control systems.
Because they fly, drones boast incredible accessibility. They excel in places where traditional ground gear just totally fails. Think about those wet rice fields in Asia, or terraced farms cut straight into steep mountainsides, or vineyards where the rows are just way too narrow for a massive boom sprayer. And here's a huge one. Think about a field right after a massive rainstorm. Normally, a farmer has to wait days for the soil to dry out so a multi-ton tractor doesn't get horribly stuck in the mud. But a drone? It can deploy and start working from above literally immediately. And that speed is absolutely crucial because out in the fields, timing is quite literally everything. A delayed spray, just because the ground is too wet, can sometimes mean the difference between knocking out a fungal outbreak and losing an entire harvest. Being able to access a field instantly can save crops during those tiny critical windows of vulnerability, all while causing zero physical damage to the plants themselves. But hey, efficiency isn't just about speed. It is all about precision. Traditional spraying is kind of like using a sledgehammer. It treats the whole field equally, covering everything in chemicals, even if just one tiny corner actually has a pest problem. Drones change that entirely. These machines are increasingly paired with multispectral imaging that scans the field and identifies invisible stress zones in the plants. Then, precision software maps those exact coordinates. So the drone flies out, targets just that one specific affected spot, and sprays exactly what's needed. We're talking about drastically cutting down chemical waste, lowering operating costs, and massively reducing the environmental impact. All right, Section 3, the laws of physics. Time for a reality check. Because problem solved, right? We just fly drones everywhere. Well, actually, no. This is where the conversation gets a lot more complicated. Because no matter how incredible the software is, small flying machines just cannot cheat the fundamental laws of physics. Let's break down the undeniable real-world bottlenecks here. First up, payload capacity. Water and agricultural chemicals are heavy. A traditional tractor can carry thousands of liters of liquid. A drone? Not even close. That means they need constant, frequent refilling, which really bogs things down on massive broadacre farms. Then there's battery life. Lugging a heavy liquid payload drains batteries unbelievably fast. You need an entire logistical operation, support crews, high-speed chargers, piles of spare batteries, just to keep one single drone in the air. And finally, weather. Drones get tossed around by wind, which causes spray drift, meaning your chemicals literally just blow away from the target crops. Add in high heat, and those fine droplets can evaporate before they even hit the leaves. And that leads right into section 4, the human element. We've really got to bust the automation myth here, because these physical limitations lead directly to one of the absolute biggest misconceptions about ag drones, the idea that they're fully automated robots that just magically eliminate the need for profound farming knowledge. Yeah, no, you definitely can't just press a button on your smartphone and walk away to grab a coffee. In reality, modern drone operators need this intense, highly specialized blend of both aviation and agricultural expertise. They have to navigate flight planning and strict local aviation laws. They have to nail precise nozzle calibration so the droplet size is perfectly matched to the specific chemical they're using. If you mess up the calibration and catch a gust of wind, you're under-applying chemicals to your crops and simultaneously over-applying them to your neighbor's property. That is a recipe for massive waste and some pretty serious legal liabilities. Plus, the barriers to entry are huge. Professional ag drones are essentially commercial aircraft. You're not just buying a drone, you're investing in massive charging infrastructure, ongoing software subscriptions, heavy maintenance, and commercial aviation licensing. It's so expensive and strictly regulated that a lot of smaller farms are actually finding it much more practical to just hire specialized third-party drone spraying services rather than trying to buy and run the whole shebang themselves. I really want to pause on this quote because it hits the nail right on the head. Technology improves the tool, but management still determines the outcome. A smarter tool doesn't magically create smarter farming. If you map a field perfectly, but you choose the wrong chemical treatment or you apply it at the wrong time of day, well, your high-tech drone just became a very expensive, very fast way to make a terrible farming decision. So let's zoom out to Section 5, the precision farming shift, and look at the macro view of agriculture. Because when we step back, we realize the most important thing happening here isn't even the drone itself. The drone is really just a symptom of a much larger shift happening across the globe. Drones are absolutely proving their worth, especially when it comes to specialty crops, rough terrain, and highly time-sensitive jobs, because they are a crucial piece of this massive transition toward precision farming. We are finally moving away from treating every single square meter of a farm exactly the same. Instead, the industry is leveraging data, sensors, high-res mapping, and automation to make super-targeted, highly sustainable decisions. The drone? It's simply the delivery mechanism for this data-driven agricultural transformation. It's all pointing toward a future where farming becomes highly measured and, frankly, far more efficient. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final thought to chew on. At the end of the day, the real advantage out in the field still completely belongs to the people who intimately understand their crops, their soil, and their hyper-local climate. The future of agriculture isn't about tossing the farmer out and replacing them with a flying machine. It's about putting incredibly capable precision tools in their hands so they can do their jobs better than ever before. But as these technologies become increasingly autonomous and everywhere we look, we've got to wonder, at what point does the tool stop serving the farmer and start replacing them entirely?